Hello, everybody. Chris Lee, Joey Dwyer, Billy Derrick of Vandy Sports here in front of what used to be a goalpost.
There it is.
There it is. Vanderbilt has stunned the college football world and us, beating Alabama 40-35. We just got out of the postgame presser. Honestly, guys, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever covered, and it just I feel like everybody still doesn't know how to react. It doesn't feel like we were sitting there watching Clark Lee's dad in the press conference, and someone asked him, how does this feel? He said, it kind of hasn't hit me yet. I think a couple of players said that. Billy, you followed the program a long time before you joined us. This is just it's a strange moment.
It really is. It's unspeakable. In the press box a couple of times after a couple of plays, I look over at you, Chris, and say, this is off-putting. This is disorienting to see Vanderbilt do what they did and consistently. And, we got to halftime, and the thought was that Alabama was going to turn it on, and Jalen Milroe is going to be Jalen Milroe. Ryan Williams is going to be Ryan Williams. But Vanderbilt ended up being Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia ended up being a star, and Brandon Fontenette, obviously with the interception. And Joey and I talked about stars have to be stars tonight. Well, they were. Yeah. Diego Pavia played flawlessly. I don't remember a single mistake. Eli Stowers, same thing. Brandon Fontenette, C.J. Taylor, I thought probably had his best game of the season. So it really is just unspeakable. And we had a stat up in the press box. Since the AP poll, Vanderbilt was 0-60 against AP top 5 teams. So I don't know that we can put into words what this means for Vanderbilt fans, for the program, for the university. Beating Alabama, beating a number 1 ranked Alabama team is unbelievable. I talked to somebody that covers Alabama after the game, and he goes, this is the best win in Vanderbilt's history and the worst loss in Alabama's history, which I thought was really interesting, because you have the high of hiring Kalen DeBoer and you beat Georgia, but all of a sudden you go sinking down. But for Vanderbilt, it's the complete opposite. So I know we're going to get a lot of thoughts out here tonight, but unbelievable that there aren't really any words to describe what happened. The goalpost is in the Cumberland River right now. Yeah. As we're behind the remnants of it. Took them a while to get it down, but Joey, C.J. Taylor said it, and credit to him, credit to you, and they believed it. They believed this could happen. Clark Lee said it after the game. This was not a surprise. Right? We expected to beat Alabama, and it happened.
People called C.J. Taylor crazy, Billy. He was right. And I don't even know if I believed he was right, but I don't think many people even thought that this could be a possibility. You thought of the demons of Vanderbilt's past with that type of thing. You saw the demons of Vanderbilt's past tonight a lot when it looked like Jalen Milroe was going to lead him for a score, and then Miles Capers gets the strip sack to hold on. Yeah. They go, and they're on 4th and 1, and it's like, if Alabama gets a stop here, they probably go down and score. Probably changes the game. Alabama probably wins. Instead, Diego Pavia finds Junior Sherrill. This team is just made of something different than I think a lot of Vanderbilt teams are made of, and Chris would know better than me, but I don't know if there's a single Vanderbilt team who's been made of the things that this team are made of. Diego Pavia gives them an edge that they don't have, and that has really gone throughout the entire locker room. They believe, even when people say they have no chance, they believe. When people say they should win the game, they believe. Vanderbilt pulled off some magic tonight in a way that I don't know if I ever thought this program would be able to do. You saw Tennessee a couple years ago beat Alabama and run the goalposts in the river there. I don't know that we ever I don't know if we right. I don't know if we ever envisioned Vanderbilt having a moment like that. But tonight they did it. Their vision is starting to be vitalized a little bit, and I think we have to be a little cognizant, but it's pretty hard not to say that this is the biggest win in program history. It was over a number 1 team. It was after said number 1 team beat the number 2 team in the country. It's not like you're playing a team in week 1 where maybe it's a miseval by people. We've seen this team be really good. Vanderbilt goes in and beats them after being 0-10 against AP number 1 teams. The most losses out of any Power 5 program against top 5 teams in the AP poll. Vanderbilt pulled off some magic tonight in a way that this program has not been accustomed to ever.
There's a couple things that I'll sort of frame the picture with tonight that are running through my mind. One of them is I got a text, I guess, yesterday from a former player who's a friend of mine who had 2 tickets. Said, you guys you want 2 tickets. And I'm like, well, I've got a press pass. I never sit in the stands. And I've got a 10-year-old son who's just naive enough to want to come to these. Right. And it's but we had stuff going on. So I called my brother, and he and I used to grow up watching games in the stadium with my dad. I mean, I don't even know how many dozens of them, maybe hundreds. And so I called my brother, and I kind of woke him from a nap. And my brother, being the good uncle, it was kind of like, well, I guess I'll take him if I have to. And and he texted me with it like he's pulling in. He's like, we had to walk 1.5 miles from where we parked to get here. I'm like, man, and I felt kind of bad, because like you always know how this ends. But when the game started, that first drive, I mean, I think that was the moment, like.
Mm-hmm. It's like that first drive had to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, we looked at each other. We said, this offensive line is really pushing them around. And you just kept waiting for that to end. And yeah, there were times where they got maybe a little predictable, if that's the right way. And yeah, Alabama kind of knew the run was coming, and they pushed it back. And then there were other times where they opened creases. And that really, Alabama would get a stop here and there, but that kept on all night. And that was really, as we're watching the game, and I mean, when I've covered so many of these, there's always the voice in the back of your head that's going, when to fix Billy's voice here, that's going on, man, I've seen a few of these, and it's just, how did they blow it in the end? But it did feel different, and there was that little voice in the back of my head that was just going, this game looks different than we ever would have thought. You would have thought that they would have scored touchdowns on pick sixes, and there was one of those, and they would have been +5 in turnovers, and they would have, scored on a double reverse pass. And again, there were some of those moments where they gadgeted Alabama and won. But I think the big thing to me is if the lines of scrimmage tonight, that was what was astonishing.
Yeah.
To go toe-to-toe with Alabama, which, maybe their place in the world got passed with Georgia with offensive and defensive linemen, but it's not, if so, it's not by much. That was what was astonishing. And we were just kept thinking, I know we were all thinking it, like, when are they going to blow this and how's it going to happen? But in the back of my head, I think it occurred to me mid-third quarter, I'm like, if you didn't know any better, and you didn't know one team was Vanderbilt, you didn't know the other team was number one in the country.
You were someone from Germany in town you've never seen Vanderbilt play.
Would you know? And I think you could probably guess if you watched the game, because they had a Ryan Williams and Vanderbilt didn't, and they had some pieces and some athleticism, but that really only showed out maybe 10% of the time. Other than that, I mean, they're the ones that turn one around for a pick six. They're the ones that forced the fumble on a strip sack. It's the way they always lose those games is the way they won tonight, and that was what was just astonishing.
Chris, you've been covering Vanderbilt for 20 years. I've been following Vanderbilt really my whole life. Joey, 2 years, right? So, but our vision is blurred from the athletic year Vanderbilt had last year, that we sort of suffered through. I mean, everybody suffered through. I mean, let's say it. That was an awful, embarrassing, pathetic athletic year. So that 1 year probably has you jaded a little bit. Chris, for 20 years, your vision's probably a little blurred when Vanderbilt comes on the field and plays Alabama. I've been to games here. I mean, I went in 2017. I was telling Joey before the game, that was 59-0. Yeah. And, Vanderbilt was the laughingstock. And Vanderbilt has been the laughingstock in several moments, right? Last year, in 2017, there's pictures, there's videos that come out that people just laugh at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
There was none of that today. And that, I feel like a lot of that changed. When you beat Alabama, but when you do it the way they did, right? This wasn't a fluky Alabama played awful. They didn't play great, but Alabama turned it on in the second half. I mean, Ryan Williams had a ridiculous play there, 64-yard touchdown.
Sideline was incredible.
Right. So for those things to happen, for Alabama to continue making great plays, they cut it to 5 there with what was 5 minutes left.
And then they got the field goal. Was that it? No, they got the field. Let's see. They cut it to 2, and then they got the touchdown, I think. And then Alabama answered the one. It's a blur. Like there were so many plays tonight. Like somebody said that the sack in the postgame. Like what sack? And it took me a while to remember until they brought up Issa Wataha, and like there were. It's still, I think it's kind of a blur to everybody. And I think the weirdest thing was being in that postgame room waiting, and everybody was still like
stirring.
Well, and I think the moment was when we were standing next to Clark Lee's dad. I think I said that somebody asked him, and he said, "It hasn't hit me." I really think, like, it was so weird to see them say we kind of expected. It's like they weren't surprised, but afterwards, like, I think we're all still just going,
Right.
"What in the world were we watching?"
Right, and that's because of the product we've seen
Yeah.
the last couple years. Go back a couple years ago, they were 5-7, right? That wasn't a bad season, but last season I thought did a lot of damage for fans, for the program. Clark admitted it. That month of December was really hard. He had a lot of long nights with his team to try to rally everybody together. But what I was getting at is that Vanderbilt fans, anyone associated with Vanderbilt's athletic department, is jaded. I mean, they just are. And, maybe not for baseball, but football in most cases, is the sort of the whipping boy for the SEC and for Vanderbilt. So that's why it's so shocking that this has never happened. For Tennessee's win a couple years ago, that had happened. It had been 15 years. But we were talking about Vanderbilt hasn't scored a touchdown on Alabama since 2007. They were outscored 148-3 against Alabama. So, and it just kept building. I saw on Twitter people, Vanderbilt's up 7-0, alert, 13-0, and then it got into the third quarter, got into the fourth quarter, and it just kept causing a ripple effect.
They never trailed for a second tonight.
Right.
They took the lead on the first possession, and the closest Alabama got was 2.
Right.
And that part, too, is – although I guess it would have been more astonishing at Alabama taking the lead, and then they got it back. But and I'm sorry to hog the mic here, but when you're talking about the domination, one thing – Clark's had some wins, the Kentucky win, the Florida win, but they run up against an Alabama, a Georgia, a Tennessee. It's just been a bloodletting. Like, they weren't even competitive for 2 minutes in some of those games. And I think that's where they flipped the mentality in the offseason with Jerry Kill. That tonight does not happen without the New Mexico State crowd, because they just went into games the last couple years, and you knew when they played Behemoth, it was going to always look the same way. It felt like everybody knew they couldn't compete. Like a lot of teams at Vandy in the past, they would give a good fight to Alabama. They'd have a lead in the second half for Georgia, and it would always end the same way. The program the last few years hasn't even been remotely competitive in these games. And I think that's what is so astonishing.
Vanderbilt shocked the world tonight, Chris. They shocked the country. They're the talk of the country. They shocked their own fan base. And that's something that doesn't happen often in college football. The level of belief within that building, I think, is completely remarkable for the past that they've had. Just think about how far they've come in the last year. They were 2-10 last year, weren't within 15 points of an SEC opponent. They won today. Last week they lost by 3 to a team that was in the top 10. I don't think will be anymore. But, man, they have come a long way. Their talent level is so much higher than it has been in the past. And really, where I think you commend Clark Lee the most is just the way they've evolved. They've evolved mentally. They've evolved in terms of their talent level. They've evolved in terms of coming into a game like this and not expecting to get beat. Because we had never heard in the past, we think we're going to go beat Alabama. You heard that from one guy in the past, not the entire team. This week you heard it from the whole team. And rather than the old ways of Vanderbilt getting your hopes up, talking a whole lot, they come in and back it up. When has that ever happened for a Vanderbilt sports team? I don't know.
Well, they've had this habit. You guys have it. Well, they will have a little glimmer, like they'll have a near miss against Missouri, and everybody will think they're close to turning a corner. And then the next week it is invariably a slaughter worse than you can imagine. And tonight it just didn't happen. And I think the enduring image of this game is just going to be Diego Pavia. The play he made in this end zone behind us. I mean, so many times tonight, Billy, you would look. I was having trouble processing what I was seeing because he does stuff so quickly, and you're like, "What did he just run a play fake up the middle and then pull it out?" I mean, and if I'm seeing it, I know Alabama was too. They had Alabama off balance all night, and it really never stopped.
No, and I think the 3 biggest plays we would all agree on early on. The Randon Fontenette pick 6. Yep. That was a play where Alabama sideline goes, we're going to have to fight. We're going to have to compete. We're going to have to earn this win today. Number 2, obviously late in the game, Miles Capers, his strip sack, which I thought was the play of the game. I think we talked about it. Came at a huge moment. Alabama was gaining momentum. They had rhythm offensively. They were moving the football. All of a sudden, Miles Capers just clocks Jalen Milroe, and the ball comes loose. And Issa Wataha picks it up. That's big play number 2, I think the biggest play of the game. And then lastly, the beautiful design. There were so many beautiful play designs tonight. I mean, Stowers, over 100 yards receiving. How many yards per catch, Joey? Was probably a crazy number.
6 for $111, whatever that is.
So
what? 20 yards a catch.
And it was 86 yards after the catch on the day.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he could be your MVP. I mean, it started to go away from Pavia there, but they're kind of dual MVPs there. But the play there, Cam Johnson was wide open. I mean, that's what is stunning today. Like, there were plays that looked easy for Vanderbilt. There were plays against Missouri that looked easy.
Yeah.
The running lanes. You asked Clark about the offensive line, which I thought was a great question. Coach Klinakis after the game had blood on his face. Like, that is kind of an encapsulation of this program, that they want it so bad. And we've heard them talk about that since since spring ball. Well, maybe not spring ball because Pavia wasn't there and spring ball was a little ugly. I think this program would tell you. But you get into the fall, and even summer, you get into the summer and fall, that's what they've been talking about. That hasn't changed. So, and it's one thing to talk about, we're going to beat Alabama. We believe this can happen, but for the belief to carry over, I thought was unbelievable tonight.
Let me give, because I've got to get out of here. I'll let you guys finish. There are 2 things that stick in my mind as I'm kind of wrapping this up. Guys, we talked about how they had to play a perfect game. We're sitting here. They are 5 games through the season. They've turned it over once. I think they've only. I mean, they didn't even leave it on the ground and get a lucky bounce. I just
Talk about the penalties too. The penalties were night and day from last week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just thinking, all right, if they lose this game, like they might. You could see them fumbling a snap away in garbage time when somebody takes.
There was no huge mistake.
No.
That flipped the game.
All it would take is Diego Pavia just for a minute averting his eyes to watch a middle linebacker or something, and then fumbling a snap. Like, they kept focused the whole time. It was amazing. The penalties, they had 1 or 2 that hurt them, but not many. It was nothing. Alabama had those 2 penalties on that drive before halftime that kept them alive. They had the penalty on the other end where they had 2 guys with duplicate numbers. Penalties have been a problem for Alabama.
Well, and how about that was eerily similar to the Virginia Tech game.
Yeah.
And almost the same exact thing. In early pick 6, an early interception, same numbers. Alabama was looking like Virginia Tech, which just boggles the mind. Like, it's unbelievable.
But I think the fact that they never flinched and never lost focus is incredible. And like, if people didn't see it, stadium was 80% red. Yeah. It was when they came on the field, it was deafening. Although I thought the students tonight were incredible.
Yep.
I mean, it was loud at the end, just through that bunch in that end zone. But I think that was the one thing. And I think the other thing, you just think on a night about a lot of people. Seeing Clark Lee's dad, seeing the people that have worked here and have never gotten to see Vanderbilt beat Alabama in Nashville. Maybe some people lived through the one in 84 in Tuscaloosa, but that's been so long ago. Most people watching this video probably weren't alive.
You and George Plaster.
Well, right. I mean, but there's so many people that never have lived to have a night like tonight. I'm sure I'll think of them all on my way home. But those are the people that you're really happy for, is the people that have suffered through so much stuff to get one of these.
Well, before you go, Chris, I know you got to head out. I'm happy for you, genuinely.
It's nice to cover one of them. And I just kept thinking, I'm so glad my son got to be here with my brother. I sat in this, before I did this as a media guy, I sat in the stands so many times with John, and you just would see these crumble if it ever got to this point. And that might be the one regret I have, is that, I mean, you're doing that was the other thing that was weird, I guess, that I hadn't thought about, is like, we've got a job to do and we're recording history, so you're not really soaking in the stuff that everybody else is. We are taking video, we're writing stories, we're recording stuff like everybody else gets to experience in jubilation. We're here with a job to do, which makes it weird. But I think that was the cool thing, is we're sitting here knowing we're recording history for a lot of people that never got to see it. And I think that's the fun part, is being able to do that and kind of serve a fan base that really deserves it.
Yeah, well, hopefully things continue to go well for us and the site. And, I joked with you in the press box. This should change things for us a little bit. It should.
Well, hopefully. And look, football's a funny game. We've seen some weird games this year. just tonight, everybody enjoy it. Tomorrow you flip the page to everything else, but tonight is for people to enjoy it, and I hope that a lot of people do.
He sounds like Clark Lee, Joe.
Yeah. He does. I think
guys.
Along the lines of people who haven't seen things like this before, I think Candace Story-Lee deserves a lot of credit. Clark Lee mentioned her to open the presser. She's caught a ton of flack over the last year, and in some ways deservedly so, but she's also been a co-engineer of this program in terms of fixing the way it's operating, fixing the way it's invested in. And I think that showed tonight. Maybe she wasn't the number one reason for this. I think there's a lot of other reasons that come before that. The investment Vanderbilt has made in this program, though, and the way they've taken it seriously more so than they have in the past, I think is a huge indicator of what's going to happen moving forward in this program, and I think is a huge reason they got to where they got to tonight. One thing Chris mentioned briefly that I wanted to talk more about, Vanderbilt in the biggest moments tonight showed a confidence in those moments, and I don't know that we have ever really seen that from a Vanderbilt football team. It felt like when their back was against the wall, when they needed to make a play, and you felt like in the past they had never done it, they did it over and over again. And even the last drive, to where they come in, and I think Alabama had 3 timeouts. They throw it to Cedric Alexander on 2nd or 3rd down. He gets the first down, and then he runs for a first down the next play. When has that ever happened? I always had thought in those moments that Vanderbilt is going to find a way to not get a first down. Alabama's going to get the ball back, and they're going to score. And you kind of felt like that the whole game. Vanderbilt had a flair for the dramatic tonight, though. When they needed to make a play, they always seemed to make it. And I think maybe the most impressive thing tonight was the way they were able to play within their identity and how that carried them to the win. The time of possession stat is just unbelievable, 42 minutes to 17. Unbelievable stat. And they did it not through forcing a ton of turnovers. They forced turnovers, and that was a huge part of this game. But they were able to really gash Alabama on the ground. They didn't turn it over. And when they needed to extend a drive on 3rd down, they did it time and time again. It was just an unbelievable showing of their strategy and how that strategy was able to benefit them as they went forward in this game. Everything that Clark Lee had kind of envisioned with this team that I don't think even we had seen as a probable outcome showed tonight. And I think this is probably the most gratifying night of his career and maybe the most gratifying night of his life for that reason. Vanderbilt showed up when it needed to. It played to its strategy and found a way to win in a way that I don't think anybody externally thought they would.
Yeah, it was clinical. I mean, if you were to sit in a room with Jerry and Tim and Clark and really all the coaches, what do you guys have to do to win tonight? What does a win look like over Alabama tonight? It's right there. It's exactly what you just watched. I mean, Chris talked about it, the first drive. From the first snap to the last, Vanderbilt did just about everything right. Mm-hmm. I mean, no turnovers. You had some defensive, lapses at times, especially most of it was early, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of it was in that first half where you lost Dupree, the tight end, at one time. You let a running back get loose for a touchdown there, but it was an 8-yard run. They made Alabama go the long, hard way, like Clark Lee always says. And when Ryan Williams or Jalen Milroe beat Vanderbilt tonight, it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. They made them earn it. Like that catch over here from Ryan Williams, Jalen Lackey did everything he could, and Ryan Williams just stepped up and made an NFL play. He's an NFL player. He's a first-round pick. So is Jalen Milroe. So are a bunch of other Alabama players. Martell Height back here on the other Ryan Williams catch, I think it was, on the other end zone. That was Jeremy Bernard, actually, I think it was. Prentice, Bernard, Williams, they all run together. Not really, actually. Williams is probably the best of those. But either way, Alabama produced. It wasn't like Vanderbilt shut them out. So with that being said, Alabama, they got theirs. They got their place. Like Clark said, Milroe's going to get his place. Williams is going to get his place. But Vanderbilt's defense did just enough. And I want to shine a light on the defense. I know I did the report card, and maybe you can talk a little bit about your offensive report card here, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But they made enough plays. They made just enough big plays. In the run game, I don't know if I'd say they were stout, but they were pretty solid. I mean, that was a good effort, I thought, defensively in the run game. Alabama really, they scored touchdowns, but Vanderbilt, the turnovers were massive. If you don't have those 2 turnovers, you don't win the game. Brandon Fontenette's pick 6 that was tipped by Derrick Wright was massive. And then Miles Capers' strip sack was, I thought, the play of the game. Just the way the momentum was going in the game, you needed a play like that. And I feel like Vanderbilt's defense has been very opportunistic this year. They have stepped up when a big play is needed. And I think that's a sign of a team that is connected, that plays all three sides of the football well: special teams, offense, defense. And how about Brock Taylor today? Right, hit a 51-yarder, and that was the only one. Right, yeah. He hit another. He not hit another one?
I don't know. He might have hit another one.
Either way, he hit a 51-yarder.
It all runs together.
Yeah, but he missed a 35-yarder to potentially tie the game against Missouri. So I think, again, the mentality, Clark had full confidence. His confidence didn't shake, and Brock had some good kickoffs where, Vanderbilt had good coverage. So, as much as we talk about Pavia and Fontenette's play and Miles Capers' play and Cedric Alexander's, production tonight, and, Quincy Skinner made a play or two, Sherrill had a couple catches, you can't forget about guys like Gabe Fisher, who I saw made some really good blocks, had a really good block there as the fullback for one of the late Alexander runs, but Brock Taylor as well. Mirko had a really good punt. So everybody played the way they should have played for Vanderbilt to win this game. And we'll have all week to talk about what this means for the program, and but we also got to shift our focus to Kentucky. But just unbelievable, Joey. And I know you have some offensive stuff to get into, but as you get into that, none of this is possible without Pavia. And I think that starts with Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill was the initial hire, if I'm not mistaken. Tim Beck. So credit Tim Beck, to likely convince Jerry Kill to come over here and then bring in Pavia. But, man, that offense, 40 points. 40 points against an Alabama team is pretty crazy.
Who would have thought Vanderbilt would score 40 points against Alabama? I think Tim Beck has done so much good for this program and has done so many things that have gone unnoticed. I think his play calling has just been exceptional. The way they play to their identity has a lot to do with the way Tim Beck called the game. Even some of their biggest plays were on short passes. You look at the Eli Stowers shovel pass. Tim Beck found something there. He found a way to consistently get Eli Stowers involved because he knows Pavia is a guy who wants to throw to him. He knows how to unlock Pavia and not give him too much of an uphill climb. It never, to me, looks like Diego Pavia is playing without a bunch of safety options. And I think that's a huge testament to what Tim Beck has done. You just look at the Vanderbilt fan base, and I've made this point a couple times. Every other college football fan base is complaining about the offensive coordinator. Vanderbilt is not, and I think we need to shine some light on that. Tim Beck has completely transformed the identity of their offense. He's completely transformed the way they operate, the way they get out in and out of the huddle. Chris Klanakis has done a tremendous job with the offensive line. Stephen Hubbard, I think, has become a real leader for this team. Diego Pavia mentioned him. I'm going to not say some of the explicit things he said, but I just think their identity on the offensive side of the ball. Jerry Kill gets a lot of credit. I think Tim Beck deserves more of it, though. He has just completely transformed what they are offensively. I want to go back to the defense for a second before I get deeper into it. Opportunistic, I think, is a great word for what they were. They still gave up 35 points. There were still some drives where it looked really easy for Alabama. They had some busting coverage, things along those lines. But they made up for it by making impact plays that kept them in the game. Because if they didn't do those things and Alabama scores 2 touchdowns, this game's probably not even that close. But we talked in the beginning, are they going to be able to completely stop Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams? No. But also, they were able to contain them enough and do enough things well, and they were able to make them make mistakes so that this game didn't go in Alabama's favor. And I think that's just a tremendous testament to the way they're coached and what they're made of. Again, offensively, though, Diego Pavia is where it starts and ends. He did a tremendous job kind of leading them in big moments tonight and allowing them to find a way to win this game when it felt like they wouldn't. Cedric Alexander punched it in twice. It felt like they had to finish drives. They couldn't turn it over. They did both of those things today. Cedric Alexander punched in 2 touchdowns around the goal line. Their offensive line was physical, and I thought that was a microcosm of the way this program has moved along and how far they've come. It's really hard to be really good up front, and they were really good up front tonight. Their running backs were really good. A.J. Newberry made a few plays. I think he can really hit the hole, and that really works against a team like Alabama. Cole Spence got involved. He had a really nice block. Quincy Skinner got involved. Vanderbilt was getting everyone involved tonight, too. Junior Sherrill caught the touchdown. Diego Pavia is the head of all of it, though. I think Tim Beck deserves a lot of credit. Diego Pavia does. All the little things went their way tonight offensively, though, and I don't think they win the game without that happening. All right,
I think we're hogging the goalpost, so we'll get out of here, and we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. But, again, we'll have plenty of thoughts rest of tonight, tomorrow, rest of the week. Vanderbilt beats Alabama 40-35. This goalpost behind us, it's in the Cumberland River. So, unbelievable night for Vanderbilt, and again, we'll continue our coverage. Follow along, vandysports.com. Vanderbilt heads to Lexington next Saturday for another big SEC game. But that's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick saying so long from a historic night for Vanderbilt football.